Imagine you're 17 years old. Your father loves you more than your 10 older brothers. Everyone in the camp knows it. And to make it official, he gives you a coat. Long-sleeved, richly decorated, the kind of garment worn by royalty. You wear it every day. Your brothers see it every day. Then you have a dream. In it, your brothers' sheaves of grain bow down to yours. You tell them about it, because you're 17 and you haven't learned yet that some things are better kept to yourself. Are you actually saying you're going to rule over us? A few weeks later, your father sends you to check on them in the fields. They see you coming from a distance. The coat is hard to miss. One of them says it first, "Here comes that dreamer." They grab you, strip the coat off your back, throw you into an empty pit. Then they sit down to eat lunch. Joseph's father, Jacob, had 2 wives, Leah and Rachel. He loved Rachel with everything he had. When Joseph was born, the child of Rachel, born after years of infertility, he became something more than just a son. He was precious in a way the others weren't, and Jacob didn't hide it. The coat, a ketornet pasim, a long-sleeved robe worn by nobility, was a public declaration. In a culture where clothing signals status, Jacob dressed Joseph like a prince, and everyone else like shepherds. Here's the detail the story glosses over. Jacob himself came from a family destroyed by parental favoritism. His mother Rebekah openly preferred him over his brother Esau. That favoritism led to lies, betrayal, and 20 years of exile. Jacob lived through the wreckage. He knew exactly what favoritism did to a family. He had been on both ends of it, the chosen one and the fugitive. And then he did the exact same thing to his own children. This is the part of generational cycles that is hardest to explain. People don't repeat the patterns that hurt them because they're thoughtless. They repeat them because those patterns are the only map they have. Jacob knew how to be the favored son. He didn't know how to be a fair father. Nobody had modeled that for him. The problem didn't start with the brothers. It started with Jacob. The coat was an act of provocation, perhaps unconscious but devastating in its effect. Now add the dreams. Joseph has 2 visions in which his family bows down to him. Even his father rebukes him for the second one. But right after the rebuke, the text says something quiet and devastating. His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Jacob kept it in mind, because somewhere beneath the rebuke, he believed his son might actually be right. The brothers knew it too. And that's the core of the jealousy. It's not just about a coat. It's the suspicion that the person you resent might actually deserve the recognition they're getting, that the dreams might be real, that your father sees something in him that he doesn't see in you. That kind of jealousy doesn't stay contained. When the brothers see Joseph coming across the fields, the plan forms fast. Let's kill him. Say a wild animal devoured him. The text never tells us which brother says it first. It's they. The plan emerges from the group. This is how collective violence works. Distributed moral responsibility means nobody has to be the monster alone. The monstrousness is shared, diluted, easier to live with. Nobody has to look at themselves in the mirror and see a killer. They're just going along with what the group decided. First comes the resentment, quiet and private. Then someone voices it. Then it becomes the group's shared position. And once the group has a position, acting on it stops feeling like cruelty. It starts feeling like justice. Reuben pumps the brakes. Don't kill him. Throw him in the cistern. His real plan is to come back later and rescue Joseph. He's not a hero, but he's the only one hesitating. So they strip the coat. They throw Joseph in the pit. And then Genesis 37:25 delivers one of the most chilling lines in the entire chapter. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. They sat down to eat. Their brother is in the pit screaming. We know he was screaming because 20 years later, one of the brothers says, "We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen." And they had lunch. Then Judah suggests selling him instead of killing him. 20 silver pieces, less than the standard market price for a slave. As if in the transaction itself, they needed to devalue him one more time. Joseph is sold to a caravan heading to Egypt. They dip the coat in goat's blood and bring it to Jacob. "Is this your son's robe?" Jacob recognizes it immediately. He mourns for months. He refuses to be comforted. He says he'll go to his grave grieving, and the brothers watch him fall apart, knowing exactly what they did. Joseph ends up in Egypt, sold to a man named Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials. Falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, she grabs his cloak as he flees, then uses it as evidence against him, the way the brothers used the coat against him. Thrown in prison. And yet, at every stage, he rises. He runs Potiphar's household. He runs the prison. He interprets dreams with perfect accuracy. Something in him refuses to be reduced by what's been done to him. He doesn't collapse inward. He finds what he can do in the situation he's in, and he does it completely. Eventually, he's brought before Pharaoh, who has had 2 dreams nobody can explain. Joseph interprets them: 7 years of abundance, then 7 years of famine. Before Pharaoh can even ask what to do, Joseph lays out the entire economic strategy. Pharaoh looks at his advisors, then back at Joseph. Can we find anyone like this man? The 17-year-old who was sold for 20 pieces of silver is now second in command of Egypt. When the famine hits Canaan, his brothers come to buy grain. They bow before the governor, faces to the ground, not recognizing him. Joseph recognizes them immediately. He tests them. He needs to know if they're still the same men who threw him in a pit or if they've changed. He holds one brother hostage, demands they bring Benjamin, the youngest. He watches, and when the moment finally comes, when he can't hold it together any longer, he sends everyone out of the room. And he weeps, loudly enough that people outside hear it. Then he says, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" His brothers are terrified. They can't speak. And Joseph says, "Do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." He reframes the entire story. Not because what they did was okay, not because the years of slavery and false imprisonment didn't happen, but because holding on to the story of what was done to him, using his power to settle the score, would have made him a prisoner of that pit forever. The forgiveness isn't naive. It's the most strategic move in the entire story. Joseph chose who he wanted to be more than he chose revenge. What the brothers did to Joseph, we still do. We see someone exceptional, someone favored, someone with dreams we don't have, and we can't tolerate it. We remove them. Not always literally. Sometimes we just exclude, undermine, or make sure they know they don't belong. The scapegoat doesn't have to be guilty of anything. They just have to be different enough, or threatening enough, or loved enough to become the solution to the group's anxiety. And once the group has decided, the logic becomes self-reinforcing. Every piece of evidence that the person is extraordinary becomes proof that removing them was justified. Joseph's brothers weren't monsters. They were ordinary men who collectively crossed a line that none of them might have crossed alone. And then they spent 20 years carrying it, watching their father grieve, pretending they didn't know why. Joseph survived. He climbed out. The question the story leaves open isn't whether he forgave his brothers. It's whether the brothers ever really forgave themselves. After Jacob dies, they panic. They send Joseph a message claiming their father wanted them forgiven. Maybe Jacob said it. Maybe they invented it out of fear. The text doesn't clarify. But the fact that they needed to ask 22 years later tells you everything about the weight they'd been carrying. Joseph's answer is the same as before. You intended to harm me, but I'm not God, and I'm not interested in becoming who you were. There's no dramatic confrontation, no accounting, no punishment. Just that line, and the weight of what's unsaid behind it. The text gives us the ending. What it doesn't give us is whether the brothers ever stopped looking over their shoulders, whether they made peace with what they'd done, whether the years of guilt eventually softened into something they could live with. That part we have to figure out ourselves, because the ladder out of the pit isn't just for Joseph. It's for everyone who put him there, if they're willing to climb it.